Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia. One quick programming note. Tonight is the debut of the new Bear Their Souls show. Dan and I have restructured the show. It's going to be tons of fun. We've got new co-hosts. We've got new music. We've got new laughs. I hope you will join us at 8 p.m. Central. But right now, you came here to see this man here. His name is Greg Gabriel. Greg, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
I am outstanding. I want to know so much about your opinions on the last game of the season, the press conference, your good buddy Lovie Smith. So let us start there with Lovie, because I personally think that despite his one-loss record over his last few years as a head coach, both in college and in pro, that he was unfairly treated by the Houston Texans organization. Your thoughts, please.
Oh, my God. Awful. You know, he had very little to say with that roster. But I look at it this way. 2 years in a row, Houston hires a minority coach. Give him a plus for that. 2 years in a row, they fire him after 1 year. Totally wrong. You just can't do that. You've got to give somebody more than 1 year, unless it's a disaster. Lovie was handed a sinking ship. You know, the roster sucked. And so, and I like Nick Caserio. You know, I've known Nick for a long time. I don't know him well, know him well enough to say hi, how are you, how's things, that type of thing. And always had a lot of respect for him. I lost respect after this. And especially after he just did it a year ago. And, I thought going into this, there was speculation that Lovie might be let go. And I thought, they can't do it. There's no way the league is going to put up with that 2 years in a row, especially given the fact that he's a minority coach. And I mean, you've heard the complaints around the league, just, screaming. And how could Caserio think that he's going to go out and hire somebody? Well, I'll tell you, coach's salary is guaranteed to begin with. So if he signed a 4-year contract, he's still going to get that money. But you got the rest of the staff who are probably on 2-year deals or whatever. They're out of work. They might have a year left on their deal. So it affects all our lives, but it just stinks. It's not right. From a standpoint, who the hell is going to want to work for this guy?
Yeah.
Who's going to want to work for that franchise? Now, sure, there's going to be somebody that's going to be dying to take the job because they want to be a head coach. But, I'd be real leery. You lose a few games and you think, shit, I might get fired.
Yeah, this is not only a mark for the GM, a bad mark for the GM, but the entire organization, the owner, from ownership on down. It is an ugly, ugly situation, and there were rumors floating around. I mean, Deshaun Watson clearly appears to have been guilty of some things, but there were rumors floating around that it was the Texans who knew all along what was going on or had a feeling about what was going on, but they made it public and tried to destroy Deshaun Watson because he was unhappy in Houston. Be that as it may, that's just speculation. That's just a rumor. But nonetheless, this organization just is not a healthy one by any means.
No, not at all. And like I say, I think they're going to have a hard time. They have to interview at least 2 minority coaches. If I'm the Fritz Pollard Alliance, I'd tell their coaches don't go. and that would prevent them from hiring anybody for a while.
That would be really cool. Well, I want them to know not to call me as a minority non-coach. All right, let's get to the game on Sunday. I was there with my good buddy Dan Aguirre. And frankly, while we were happy that the Bears got the number 1 pick and that dramatic finish for Lovie, and congratulations to Lovie, just outstanding, gutsy head coaching there. We were not happy with the way the season ended, where it clearly felt to us like the Bears were tanking. Can you please comment on that? The kneel downs, the changing of quarterbacks in the middle of the game, and bringing in Tim Boyle.
I didn't get that one. I just said, when that happened, when they switched to the other quarterback for a couple series, I was just like, what the hell are they doing? And I didn't even realize it was like 2 plays in before I realized that he was even in. And then he throws that horrendous interception. But then not only did they bring in him, they changed both guards, for those series. And they brought in Leatherwood at left guard, which I thought was going to be the best place for him, and J. Tyree Carter at right guard. Well, J. Tyree Carter ended up playing the whole second half. And you know what? He acquitted himself pretty well. You saw, there's something to build on with him. Leatherwood got beat real bad on the play that the interception was thrown on, and his man was right in the quarterback's face. And after that play, he didn't play again.
Yeah,
so I think that could they bring him to camp? Depends what they do, I think, in the off season. As far as numbers on the offensive line, but he's failed at right tackle. He hasn't played right guard yet, but at his only opportunity to play left guard, first opportunity he had to pass block, he got beat, and he got beat like he's gotten beat before, to the outside.
Yeah. You said when the Bears acquired him that they should probably just put him on mothballs and rebuild him and stuff. And it certainly seems that way. I mean, you can't argue with giving a guy snaps. That's the best way you're going to help him. But in this,
you got to evaluate him. I get that part, but I think it's starting to come into focus now that he's just not good enough.
Yeah.
So I don't think Ryan Poles had a lot of nice things to say about Riley Reiff, and probably deservedly so. And for the most part, he's played pretty well, but he got beat pretty bad on Sunday a few times too. And, I don't know what his future is with this team. I've been saying all along for weeks, this. I think the biggest need on the offensive line is a right tackle. And there are right tackles out there available in free agent, I'll put it this way. They should be available. We'll know for a while, or not know for a while, who is actually available. They got, it's 2 months before free agency starts. Tell you one guy that may be available, though, that kind of surprises me, and he's already said it, he's looking forward to free agency, is Lazard from Green Bay.
Yeah. I'm high on him. I think he would be an upgrade over Equanimeous St. Brown, and I think you mentioned this the last time we talked. That contract for St. Brown is something that you could easily cut him if necessary to make room.
Well, they're not going to cut him. They like him. They would not have extended him.
Okay.
With a game to play if they didn't like him and they didn't want to bring him back.
Okay.
So far, he's the only guy on a 1-year deal that they brought in that they've re-signed. And that's so Lazard has acquitted himself pretty well. He's not a burner.
No. But
he's a sure-handed guy. He ran him the 4.5, so he's a big guy. He's another 6'5" receiver, and Getsy likes big receivers. Do I think he's better than Harry? Yes. There's no question he's better than Harry. Yeah. And if Harry's out of contract, so he's a free agent anyway. So, it's it remains to be seen what they're going to do. I was kind of interested. The one thing that I've been saying all along on this show about Claypool, polls pretty much reiterated. It takes some time. Yeah, you'd love to see him come in and get 1,000 yards, but that's not reality. Having to learn this offense, and then he had a couple injuries too, that it's next year that they expect him to take the jump. And I'll repeat it, and I know I'm saying this a lot, but fans want instant gratification. And I'm glad Poles said it's not like baseball or the NBA where you can plug and play a guy. At some positions you can.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not one of them in certain offenses. Now, if he had played in this offense at Pittsburgh, had run a very similar offense with the same terminology, okay, then it would have been a lot easier. But having been a totally different offense, totally different terminology, it's something that takes months. And people who worked in this offense have told me that. Don't expect a whole lot from him this year. You'll see it next year.
This is Ryan Poe saying that just like Greg said, that the Claypool trade is not like baseball. It's not a plug and play situation.
There's an entire offseason and half of a season of installs and all the things that you need to do collectively to play and execute offensive play. On top of that, it was a little bit choppy with Justin getting dinged up. He got dinged up. So it was a little bit choppy of a start. I told Chase, and we had a really good conversation, I'm not blinking at that one at all. I think he's going to help us moving forward, and I'm excited about it.
There you go. I think everybody needs to pump the brakes. Those Chase Claypool critics, like Jay Sanders, who says Claypool trade was bad. I think they need to pump.
Jay Sanders, it was not I'm going to tell you right now, it was not a bad trade. Now, if next year he doesn't produce, then it's a then you got a good opinion. But being what I know, and I get it from good people, I don't just throw shit out here. I make some phone calls to find out the answers to these things. And in this case, I called a guy who's worked in this offense for a long time. And, he said, don't count on a lot from him for this year. Just not going to happen.
Yep. My man Michael H says, as bad as the Claypool trade has turned out as of now, it really turned into a 20-pick drop back in the second round, which isn't completely terrible. He needs to hit the ground running next season, though. That is a good way to look at it. It's the difference between that pick that is now with the Steelers and the Bears pick. It's only dropping 20 slots. That's an interesting thought there.
Yeah, and look, you're not going to get in 20 slots. Chances are you're not going to get one of the guys you were eyeballing. Could you? Yeah, it's happened before, but I doubt that it'll happen again. But they're going to get a good football player, and if they're able to trade out a one. Now, it just came out within the last 45 minutes what I wrote at Windy City, and basically what should the Bears do? And everybody, it's like the thought on the Chase Claypool trade, instant gratification. And there's people out there that have put some outrageously dumb trade scenarios out there that aren't going to happen in a million freaking years. First, number one, there is no, quote, Andrew Luck or John Elway or that type of quarterback, or Lawrence that Jacksonville has. There's no quarterback like that, nor is there a player like that. There's no Myles Garrett or Chase Young in this draft. Okay, so right away, that takes away some of that value. There are, though, 4 teams in the top 10 that have a genuine need at quarterback, starting with Houston at number 2, the Colts at number 4. I think Carolina's at 9, and there's one who's at 7. I don't have the thing right at me.
I'll call it up right here at number 7. It is the Las Vegas Raiders.
The Raiders at 7, and that's a maybe because they may, Stidman may be their guy, because their head coach could be that stubborn. Now, what's going to play into this scenario also is the Raiders are going to move Carr, and one of those teams, or somebody say like Washington, is going to make a trade for Carr. And so that's going to take one team with the need, out of the equation. What I thought about when I was writing that article today, and I wasn't trying to be greedy, and I also wasn't trying to be stupid because I've been involved in these trades for, a number of times. And first of all, if you pulled up the chart, the move from number 2 to number 1 is a 400-point move.
Yeah, and for those who don't,
400-point move. You know what that is? That's a mid-second round pick.
Yeah. For those who don't know about the chart, Greg, we should tell them that it was, I forgot who originated that.
Jimmy Johnson.
Was he the first? Was he absolutely the first? And then it's been updated a number of times, but every selection in the NFL draft gets a point value. And so you can compare. If you trade a number 1 pick, it's 3,000 points. What amount of points will another first rounder, another second round, what will that total up so that you can come to some type of equality in a trade, right?
Right. Now, if you're going up to number 1, and everybody knows you're going for a quarterback if you're going up to number 1. Okay, so you're going to pay a premium. But let's just, try to think logically, because the people making these trades, in most cases, they're not stupid unless, they're Ryan Pace. Like I said, it's a 400-point trade. If Houston traded their first pick in the second round, which is number 33. So a pick, there's only 31 picks in the first round. Miami's pick has been forfeited. So the Chicago pick, which is now the Ravens, is number 32. Houston, I think, is next, unless they got to flip-flop with Denver, in which case it would be 34. So maybe you're going to get the same player. It'd be one of those. That move, just that trade, is about a 500. I'm using round figures here. A 550-point move. That's already a premium of 150 points, which is like a high third rounder or something. I don't have the chart in front of me, but it's a to get that pick.
That's really small. That's really small type, Greg. I don't expect you to be able to see that. So, but can you see that?
It's like a lower third of the third round.
Right.
Pick.
Right.
Okay. That extra 150 points. So it's like getting a 2 and a low 3. Okay. But to have that pick, which would be number either 33 or 34 in the 33. It'll be 33 or 34 in the draft. Then let's say the Colts want to make a move. They're at 4. They can jump then from 4 to 2. It doesn't cost them as much as going to 1. Probably still get the same guy, depending, unless Houston. Unless you got to be driven, but it depends on how you have your quarterbacks rated. And by the way, I'm getting some.
Let me fix
feedback.
that.
Okay. Hit me.
Go ahead, Greg.
Okay. So, it's gone. So I'm thinking again, okay, what would be fair and what would Ballard probably easily give up? And what would keep the Bears with getting one of the premium picks? You can move for the Colts 2 and a 1 next year. They're still paying the premium because that 1 is got a lot of point value. It's about an 800 point trade, I think. And so if you got the Colts too, now you'd have 2 picks in the top 4 of the second round, top 5 of the second round, and their own pick, which is going to be around 53 if Baltimore loses this weekend in the wild card, because if they win, that drops that pick down because it groups them with another, doesn't keep them in that same 10-7 grouping. It moves them up one because they want a playoff game. Okay. But you'd have 3 picks, 2 high seconds and a lower third second, plus their own 1, plus a number 1 next year. If it's me, I do that all day, because here's what happens. You got quarterbacks going 1-2. You still got Carter and Anderson on the board. You're guaranteed to getting one of those 2 players.
That would be nice.
End of discussion. You make those deals, and what you can do with those 3 2. And I wrote this up in the article. 1986. So it was, early in my career with the Giants. We had mid 1 and 3 2s, the 86 draft. We had the 3 2s because the USFL went out of business, and we had the rights to Gary Zimmerman. Remember that tackle?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We traded his rights to Denver. He got 2 2s and something else. So we got, going into that draft, we got a 1, 3 2s, and then we had, I think, 1 3 and 2 4s. Mm-hmm. With our first, with the 3 out of those 4 first and second round picks became immediate impact players. And we went to a Super Bowl that year and won. Mm-hmm. Following trip, we got Eric Dorsey, who played in the rotation as a rookie and then became a starter his second year. He was a 5 technique because we played a 3-4. We got Pepper Johnson, who was a perennial Pro Bowl inside linebacker in a 3-4. And we got Mark Collins, who was a corner from Long Beach State that doesn't play football anymore, who was also a perennial Pro Bowl corner. And the last guy we got with the second round pick was a safety by the name of Lasker from Arkansas. He played for us. He started a little bit, but he wasn't what the other guys were. Mm-hmm. But those guys made a difference. We win the NFC, play Denver in the Super Bowl, beat Denver, and we win our first Super Bowl. That was Super Bowl 21, the year after the Bears won. So that's what, and then you throw in the fact that you got probably the final cap number hasn't come around yet, but you're going to have around $120 million. You know what you can do with $120 million?
Quite a bit.
Depending on how much you got to pay for some certain players. Uh-huh. And I liked it that Ryan was not, he wasn't going to tell you anything more than what he had to tell you. He just gave you a little gravy and that was it. I liked it that he had some analysts shooting down, or not shooting down. He had some analysts saying that, the Bears got to look at Young as, the first overall pick. Well, first of all, depending on who you talk to, Young might not be the QB1. There's 3 quarterbacks out there that are going to be the first 3 quarterbacks off the board. Nobody has a freaking clue how they're going to go. You got Levis from Kentucky, Stroud from Ohio State, and Young from Alabama. They all got them rated differently. Mm-hmm. But what's got to happen between now and the beginning of April is somebody's got to become the hot guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're halfway through the process, and medical's got to be clean. Then you get into, and especially with quarterbacks, private workouts are huge with quarterbacks. That's where coaches fall in love with a player. And that's the key here. See, the coaches have not been involved in the process yet. You've got scouts grades. Okay, now your coaches get involved. Your offense, and if you got an offensive-minded head coach, it could be him. It could be your offensive coordinator and your quarterback coach, but they got to fall in love with the guy. And it's March before that happens. Middle of March, end of March.
Would it be better if it's just one quarterback that emerges as the clear number one? That way you create a market fight for him?
It could. Let's say, and you're not going to know, but let's assume. Now, going back to the Colts, Ballard said, it wouldn't surprise me if, in his presser today, that if we didn't take a quarterback with that first pick. Well, number one, he has to say that. Because you can't put the cards on the table. But number two, he also knows that he's failed. It's not his fault Andrew Luck up and retires in training camp. In fact, his last day of practice with the Colts was the day I was there. I went to 5 different training camps when I was working for DC in the XFL, and the Colts were one of them. I went to the Bears practice one day, drove down to Indianapolis, went to the Colts practice the next day, and that's the last day Andrew Luck practiced for him.
Oh my goodness! Wow!
And it just happened to be that way. And they thought at first that he was going to miss a week or 10 days. Well, it's freaking 4 years later, he still hasn't played. But he went out. He played with Jacoby Brissett for the rest of that year. They had a trade to get Jacoby Brissett from New England. Then the next year, he signs Phillip Rivers as a free agent. Phillip Rivers has actually turned out to be a pretty good signing.
Yes,
he was one and done. He hung it up. He became a high school football coach. Then in 21, he makes the trade for Carson Wentz. That was at the behest of Frank Wright. Frank coached him in Philadelphia and said, he can make this work. He's young. He's going to be the long-term solution. By the end of last season, they couldn't wait to get him out of the building.
Tony asked the question, Greg, do teams put out smear campaigns? Could you see the Bears putting one out on CJ and Levis?
Why would they want to smear him? They want to push that baby up.
Drive their value.
They want to, but they're not going to say anything about the quarterbacks. They're going to let the other teams do it. And the teams, and you know what? It's teams say very, very little. It's all the different analysts, the Mel Kipers of the world, the Daniel Jeremiah's of the world. They do all the talking. Teams don't say shit. And when the teams do say something, they lie. So
it's the lying season, Greg.
That's
as
right.
you've put it.
Right.
But Greg, sorry for interrupting. Zach Kiefer tweeted this out. He was at Ballard was asked if there's a quarterback at the top of the draft that they want, would he give up heaven and earth to trade up to get him? And Ballard said, yes, I'll do whatever it takes. Nobody knows Mr. Ballard as well as you do. And I know you're not going to give us any inside information to betray your friendship with him, but what can you tell us about Chris Ballard?
I know how he had him a month ago. Could that change? Absolutely. Because again, who's going to be their head coach? We don't know that. Is it Jeff Saturday or is it the one guy they put a request in to interview is the offensive coordinator with the Eagles who was with the Colts on Frank Reich's staff. So, he knows a lot of the personnel. He'd keep that same offense in place that they have right now that Frank had. Would be an easy transition. But he could also get Sean Payton. Sean Payton's on record as saying it's not about having a quarterback, it's about the right owner. And I think that there's some people, in talking to Chris and some other people that I know, Irsay from the outside, looks like, he's a little strange.
Mm-hmm.
But people who know him say he's really a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to win. He's not as meddling as, and Chris said it today. He says, he lets me do my job. He says, we disagree, but he lets me do my job. And which is fine. You can disagree. And as long as you can do your job and you've got the wherewithal to get your job done.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris has got to be here. I'll use a Jerry Angelo term here. You got to be, should I even use Jerry's voice?
Please.
Big dog, you got to be driven. And so
I love it.
that's what it is. He called me yesterday, by the way. I just started laughing because I pick up the phone. Hey, Jerry, how you doing? Hey, Big Dog, what's going on? And he calls everybody Big Dog. So it's there's got to be that player that you want, but also and let's use this is a really good exercise to go through. We go 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Lawrence was regarded as QB1. Jacksonville takes him.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had 3 more go, and then between 2 and 11, with Justin Fields being 11. Justin Fields should have been 2, but you had people fall in love with Wilson from BYU
mm-hmm.
and Lance from North Dakota State. I still can't figure that out, but we've talked that out. But it has nothing to do with Justin Fields. It's what you saw on tape from those guys. And Trey Lance played FCS level and played 1 freaking game his last year, and that was it. And BYU didn't play anybody in that COVID year because teams were concentrating on trying to play a conference schedule first. So they had to really scramble to get games because they're not in a conference. They're an
Mm-hmm.
independent. And so it was difficult for them to really get a schedule. And Notre Dame, which is normally an independent, but they're in all other sports, they're in the ACC. So they just went to the ACC and joined the ACC for that football season and played, just strictly an ACC schedule and won it that year. So,
wow.
But BYU's strength of schedule was horrendous. It was better than FCS, but not a lot better, Okay. So you were getting a false evaluation of Wilson. And on top of that, I think the Jets did a horrible job on finding out about what kind of person he is, what's important to him, what's his football character. Justin Fields' football character is way up here. Trey Lance's football character is way up here. Josh Allen, we've talked about it. Josh Allen has succeeded and become as great as he is because of that drive to be great. He wants to be the best. And the amount of time he puts in the offseason to get better. Josh Allen was a 55% passer his 2 years at Wyoming. Before that, he was at a JC. Okay. And it's because of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen that people changed their thought process on quarterbacks that supposedly were inaccurate in college, because Lamar Jackson was another guy who was 55, 57% in college, but is in the 60s in the pros. Excuse me. Josh Allen was in the 50s his first 2 years. His second year with Buffalo, he was a 58 or 59% completion percentage. His third year is when he took off and he jumped 10 points. That alone is unheard of. He went from 59 to 69. which is, an incredible jump for any quarterback. And now he's, he just keeps getting better. So, I mean, I've never seen a guy, and I've seen it, I think, between last year's AFC championship, or not the AFC championship game, the divisional game with Kansas City on the road, and then 2 or 3 times this year, take a team down the field in like 20 seconds, 25 seconds, and 2 or 3 plays. And he can do it because of that howitzer he's got. But you can never count Buffalo out. If there's 20 seconds left in the game and they need points, the odds are in their favor that they're going to get those points.
Good stuff. And I want to play for you, Greg. A lot of people were talking about Ryan Poles. It's all on him now. It's all on him. But actually, there's a lot of responsibility that Coach Matt Eberflus has coming up. And one of those is his coaching staff. And he was asked about that today.
As I said after the game, I'm going to meet with those guys here shortly, each one of them, and we'll evaluate everything as we go. But again, this is the NFL. A lot of things move, a lot of things change, a lot of things adjust. So we'll address that when we get there.
That, to me, tells me there might be some changes coming down with this coaching staff. What do you think?
Yep. But we've been saying that for 2 or 3 weeks. That goes back, to something he said in a presser when there were some player mistakes, and he threw it on the position coach without naming the position coach.
Right.
I don't think there'll be wholesale change.
Okay.
Probably a couple.
Do you think we'll see a coordinator change? And I'm referring specifically to Williams, a defensive coordinator.
No, I think he draws a pass because he had no players. I mean, how do you coordinate a defense when you got no players?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Berlis.
No, I was just going to say Berlissimo and Ravi and a number of other people who frequent our show are just not big fans of Allen Williams and feel like for instance, Berlissimo has been telling me this guy needs to call more blitzes. He doesn't have the talent because he doesn't have pass rushing talent. He should have been more creative with his schemes and blitz and pressure the quarterback.
You know what? I'll say this: that shoulda, coulda, woulda. And because now you go back to the Indianapolis defense last year, and they were one of the least blitzing teams in the league, but they sacked the quarterback a lot. They had a strong front four. The Bears' front four is terrible. In my opinion, there's 2 players, Jones and Watts, that are NFL players. After that, the rookie is he's got upside. He's got to get stronger. Robinson, Travis Gibson really struggled. Who knows why? And maybe it's because he had Quinn on the other side last year, and that helped him. But he played hard. Will he be around? I think he'd be around, but he's in a perfect world. You want him being your 4th defensive end, not your 2 or 1.
Yeah, that seems to be the quality of all these defensive linemen. They'd be much better as backup players. There's not a single guy on this defensive line that I would want as a starter. They would be all great, excellent backup guys as part of the rotation. You just need 3 or 4 starters for this defensive line.
I think you try to listen and read between the lines. There's one defensive lineman they gave praise to. That was Jones.
Justin Jones, yes.
The only guy.
Deservedly.
I think they're good at linebacker going forward for this scheme. And by the way, speaking of linebacker, congratulations to Roquan. He got his money.
Yeah, good for him.
5 years, he got his $20 million. 5 years, $100 million. He signed this afternoon.
Somebody in the chat said, "Are you surprised that they signed Roquan before Lamar Jackson?"
No, that means they can franchise Lamar Jackson. They had to get somebody done. Because they have 2 good players they had to get either, and the problem, both of them don't have an agent. Now, maybe Roquan got smart in the last 3 months and hired an agent, but he got a deal done, and he got a deal done at the number he was looking for. He had that $20 million figure. He's got 45 fully guaranteed and another 20 in guarantees, but you got to hit some things to get it. But he got his number.
My man Jordan compliments Justin Jones' clear leadership abilities, which is certainly true. Justin Jones stepped into that leadership role when Roquan and Quinn left and Eddie Jackson's injury. You saw him on the sidelines firing people up. He said in an interview that's not his usual role, but he was willing to take it on. And I think that's why he gets a lot of praise from the coaches, is because of what he did in the locker room too.
Yeah, and that was the same thing. Riley Reef took that on himself. I don't know what his leadership skills were before, but Riley's going to be 34 years old next year. Is he what you want starting at right tackle? Like I say, I think along the line, that is the most important position. I know there's a lot of fans that think Patrick was a bust. I'm not one of them because he played 1 quarter at center all year. But the coaching staff knows what he did in practice before he got hurt. They know what his value is. They're going to make that determination, and I'm going to go along with that. If they think that they need another center, then that's fine. Melissa was
Angelo
Blackson's just not a fit, and Pennell's not really a fit. If you're drawing up what you want in this defense, those guys aren't fits.
Yeah. That definitely appears to be so. Let's go back to the press conference that was held earlier today. Poles commented on, in his introductory remarks, he talked about what the Bears accomplished. Let's listen to this. It's about 50 seconds long.
It's really about the foundation that we built this year. I was excited about that. I was excited about the progress that we made. I think two things can be true, too. I think you can be disappointed in the losses, right? That's not what we're here to do. It hurts. I joked earlier, it feels like part of your football soul gets ripped out when you got to do it over and over and over again. But the resilience that this organization showed was outstanding. In our all-staff meeting, I handed out this in the very beginning of the season. It was just a building block that in the shape of a Lego, and I talked about the entire organization doing what it takes to stick together, because I knew how important it was to build a foundation that was rock solid. It wasn't on something that was shaky, that would fracture, and that really, everyone bought into that, and I was excited about that. I know that we're in a healthier situation now than we were before, and we're excited about where we're going.
You agree with him?
Yes, wholeheartedly. They're trying to they stripped down the franchise. They got rid of players that they felt didn't have a future, be it because of money, age, or whatever. It's a very young roster. He said it in there a little later on. He said we had more snaps by rookie players than any other team by 1,000 snaps. Which is a hell of a lot. And so you got a lot of guys that gained experience going forward, whether it's going to be as a backup or a starter. He also said that, I'm always going to be looking for the premium positions. And what did he say on that? Offensive line, defensive line, corner. Now, I think they hit a home run with some of these corners.
Absolutely.
Okay, they got some guys as college free agents that turned out to be some pretty damn good football players. All they need to do is play.
Yeah.
But you're not going to turn your back on somebody that's pretty good. It just depends if you're able to trade down. It's going to be a disappointment if they don't trade down. But at the same time, and I keep saying this, don't get your expectations up too high, because you have to have somebody driven to make that trade. You can't make a trade unless you have a partner.
Yeah. And the same thing.
And really, to go back, we were talking about the Colts. What would be ideal is if Houston and Indy have separate quarterbacks as QB number one. And then you could theoretically make those two trades, go 1 to 2 and then 2 to 4.
This is going to be such an exciting offseason. Just everything that's going to be happening behind the scenes. We're going to really rely on you to help us understand that. One of the things I want to play from you from the press conference, Greg, so that we can talk to our fans about it, and so many other people who were very critical of Ryan Poles during the season, saying you didn't get Justin Fields enough help this season. He was asked about that. This was his response.
That we had to the best of our ability based on what was there. I think that's kind of what I go back to in terms of making sound decisions. That's hard. I wish it was a perfect scenario where you could just clean up everything and be good. So I thought we made solid, sound decisions to do that. I wish it was perfect across the board to give him so it was clean as much as possible, but it just doesn't always happen that way. But again, now looking at where we can go currently, where we have flexibility to do a little bit more. Now the second piece is, like Brad said, like what talent's there for us to bring in, and can it help move the needle to help everybody get better?
Reason I wanted to play that, Greg, is because he underlined that the resources were bare in his first season as general manager. So there wasn't a lot to do, and he was trying to hit home runs or at least get on base with the Alex Leatherwood signings and some of the other guys. And some were
Leatherwood was a waiver acquisition. So
yeah,
I mean, he got waived. I thought because of his contract and of his first round contract that he might pass through waivers. Yeah, and then you sign him, but. The Bears claimed him. It's no big deal. If they do cut him, they're going to take a little bit of a cap hit, but it's not going to be something that's crazy.
It's $5 million. It's $4.6 million. So the dead cap, the cap hit is
but if you keep him around till June 1st, then it's even less. Then that gets cut in half.
Gotcha. All right. So I'm hopeful that fans understand that this rebuilding process can take more than 1 or 2 seasons. It's probably going to it won't be until 2024 when we're watching a Chicago Bears team that is competitive for a Super Bowl. Am I right or wrong on that?
I disagree with you. I think if they are lucky and get the right, a couple things. Lucky and get and are able to make deals with the right free agents. Doesn't have to be 10 or 12, but 3 or 4 good, solid football players. Okay, and then you're able to trade back a little bit, pick up more draft capital, so you could. And when I say premium picks, I'm talking first 2 rounds. Have more picks in the first 2 rounds, then right away you're bringing quality into the building. When you look at the NFC North, it's not like somebody jumps out right away as being, so far in front of everybody else. Hell, Aaron Rodgers might not be there next year. He may be. He's got him by the balls. There's nobody in the world that has a team by the balls like Aaron Rodgers does.
Very true.
They got to get out of their knees and pray that he walks back into the building next year, because if he leaves, they're destroyed for years. And it's not because he's not on the team. It's because he really screws them up cap-wise.
Yeah. Well, and regarding the Minnesota Vikings, there were some people on ESPN talking about that this might be the worst division-winning team that they have seen in many years, maybe ever, given how they have played this season. They rarely beat very good teams. Their point differential was actually in the minus.
Yes.
Negative.
Yes.
So not a good sign. And I know that point differential can sometimes be misleading, but I think in this case, it's not. This Vikings team is probably 1-out. They played the Giants, I believe, in the first round. You got a prediction on that one already?
I think the game's in Minnesota. Giants, though, I think you're going to give them a run for their money.
Yeah.
I don't know how healthy New York is right now, but Dable's a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
And he was my favorite to be the coach here, but I'm not upset with the Flus hiring at all. I like Flus. I like his old school mentality. But getting back to that game, I think that I think Minnesota will probably win, but it ain't going to be easy. And the Giants gave a good game just a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I want to play a little video after the game. David Montgomery was facing reporters, and so these could be his final words as a member of the Chicago Bears, words expressed to the media.
The biggest thing is just being sure that I understand, that I gave everything that I had and every opportunity that I had it. And also understanding, like, it's more work to be done. I want to play football. I just want to play football. I would love to be here.
Are you hopeful for that, David? Are you hopeful that it can be worked out to stay?
Of course.
He wants to come back, but he didn't sound at all confident, and I'm sure polls didn't assure him of anything.
But Poles also said today that he had a really good conversation with him. And Montgomery's got to figure, I don't know who his agent is, but if he's got a realistic agent, now this isn't going to be like a Roquan Smith thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think if you look up in Pro Football Reference, put in David Montgomery in Pro Football Reference, and you're going to see how many games he's played in each of the 4 seasons he's been here. So how many games he's missed, because I know he's missed games. So there is a durability issue. He's a running back, which right now is probably the least important play. Even though he's important to your offense, it's still, they're interchangeable when it comes to, they're easy to find another one. Just go out and draft one. And Khalil Hilbert is a perfect example. Montgomery's a good example. He was a 3rd-round pick. Khalil Hilbert was a 5th-round pick. There's a lot of late-round picks, mid-late-round picks that turn out to be really good running backs in this league. But as a leader, he's got a better skill set than Khalil Hilbert. Hilbert is a better open field runner, has more home run ability. Montgomery can move the chains a little bit better. He's a better pass protector, and he's a better receiver. And he is a big part of locker room leadership, huge part of locker room leadership. So if he's realistic, and to me, realistic is a 2-year deal, maybe 3, but if you give him a 3-year deal, I wouldn't give him a huge signing bonus so you don't take a hit, because when running backs start to fall, it's like they fall off a cliff. They're not taking they're taking the express elevator. They're not going down a slow escalator.
Yeah, the other Dan makes a good point here that Montgomery didn't miss a game this season. He started 16 out of 17 games. I take that back. And last season he started 13 out of 17 games. So he has been nicked a lot, but the guy really bounces back quickly. He takes a lot of punishment. And in that interview, that post-game interview yesterday, he was asked, what are you going to do now? He says, I'm going to rest my body because I got hit a lot. I'm not sure if he was complaining about the offensive line or not, but his running style is not conducive for longevity, is it?
Well, no. And especially with running backs, because like I say, you got to have your legs, and once your legs go, they go real quick at that position. So like you say, if he's agreeable to a I mean, could he be a guy that plays another 6 years in the league? Sure, he could. But you have no guarantee of that. So you've got to be realistic.
Yeah.
And
I'm with you.
And a realistic deal to me, if I'm sitting in that office, is I try to get a 2-year deal done. And like I say, if I do a 3, if the signing bonus isn't crazy, so if I don't have in that 3rd year, I don't get whacked too hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. The deal structure has to be well handled. And as another word of warning to Bears fans, polls said, we've got over $100 million, but I keep seeing and hearing people, we're going to, spend tons of money and so forth. We're going to be very responsible with how we spend money.
You can already see that by how he spent money last year.
Yeah.
He's not going to go crazy. And don't forget, he's got to, yes, granted, the cap's going to go up every year, but he's got to be mindful that there's guys, there's guys he's got to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's got to pay Jalen Johnson. He's got to pay Justin Fields. He's got to pay maybe Claypool and the other receiver, Darnell Mooney. He's got to keep the players that are already here that they like. He's got to pay them. So like I say, it wouldn't shock me that he spends money on 3 to 4 free agents, and then does what he did last year. You get guys on 1-year deal, 2-year deal. You don't get into the overkill because, like I said, you got to take care of these other guys, and so you got to have money. You got to structure things so you have money next, the year after for 24, for 25. Because there's other deals that are going to come, and you don't want to get in cap hell like they were in. You got to think ahead.
Absolutely. Let's get to some of our questions. I want to start off with Tony, the pod boss, who actually he was joking when he said that, but he said, get Chris Ballard on the line and ask him if we could get Nelson, Leonard, and Buckner. But
yeah, that's what I mean by people coming up and
but he's joking.
I know.
He's joking.
But there's stuff like that out there. Like there's somebody had out there, get their receiver and Nelson to move up. That's not going to happen. Not in a million years.
No, it's not.
Those are Pro Bowl level players. They themselves got a big value.
But the reason I wanted to share this with you, Greg, is because how much do you speculate that Ballard will be in a trading mood? Is he going to rebuild this organization, or is he going to try and win now, which is a risky thing to do?
I think that he thought he was in the position to win now, and that's why he went with those veteran quarterbacks.
Right.
Okay, and that didn't work. He knows he's got to get a young quarterback. I know that for a fact. Okay, so it's who does he like? And you just got to hope that for the sense of trade value, and to go from 4 to 1 would cost him a lot. Okay, but to go from 4 to 2 wouldn't cost him anywhere near as much. And so it'd be a lot easier for him to make that deal than it would to trade up to 1. And it'd be easier for Houston to go to 1 to make sure they got their guy, thinking that they got to be at 1 because somebody else may try to get to 1. Basically what Ryan Pace did when he went to 2 to get Trubisky. I want to make sure I get my guy. So I'm going to move from 3 to 2. Houston could do maybe the same thing. But again, some of this stuff is going to be dependent on who becomes their coach at both places. Both of them got to hire coaches. And, how they're going to how they're going to like these quarterbacks. I'll tell you, with Young, the Alabama quarterback, there's some people who think he's going to be 5'10 and a half and 190. Now, personally, I think he's going to be closer to 195 or 200, and he's going to be 6 feet. And he's got long arms, but still, that's not big as compared to some of the quarterbacks you see. But there have been smaller quarterbacks taken real high in the draft. We've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
So the Cardinals do it. The Browns did it with Baker Mayfield. So, it's you got to hope that these things develop. I know I'm repeating myself, but you got to just pray that these things, the love affairs start happening, because the love affairs will drive up the price, or drive up what people will pay, because
right.
I got to get them.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Eagles made 2 trades. They didn't care if they had Goff or Wentz. Mm-hmm. They wanted to make sure they got one of them. So they got themselves in a position to do that by making 2 trades. They traded like from 13 to 9 or 8, and then up to 2. And they had a lot of extra capital to be able to do it. And I think they ended up preferring Wentz anyway over Goff. And they took it. Neither one of them has panned out. And that's what happens a lot. Just like, is the San Francisco gave away the farm to trade up to get Lance, and they got a kid who was the last pick in the draft last year that's a better player.
Yeah.
All right. Who got him in the playoffs this year?
Let me get to the next question here. J2K wants to know, would you be interested in Brandon Cooks in a trade back with the Houston Texans?
Don't want him on my football team. He's an asshole.
All right.
He's one of those diva receivers that, is a I, me, my guy instead of we. There's a reason why that guy is on a different team every other year.
Yeah.
Look at how many teams he's played for since he's been in the league.
Mm-hmm. All right. Zach wants to know, what could the Chicago Bears get back if Ryan Poles wanted to trade Mr. Justin Fields?
I'm not even an answer, because doesn't want to trade him. It's not going to happen.
So are you sure that the endorsement that Poles gave Fields today is a case closed? I mean, we had talked about perhaps him driving the value of that number 1 pick.
I thought he might play that game,
but
he basically at the beginning of the presser, he didn't.
Okay.
He kind of shut there. He goes, well, yeah, if there's, basically he said if there's somebody really special, in other words, if there's John Elway there or Andrew Luck there, well, then you got to consider it, because those are generational quarterbacks. Justin Fields is better than any quarterback in this draft, hands down. So why are you going to get rid of him to start all over again? And he's going into year 2. And here's the thing some people don't understand. In the last 3 years, Justin Fields played in 3 systems. He played in a system at Ohio State, comes here as a rookie and plays in a system, Andy Reid system, and then a totally different system in the Shanahan type offense, and McVay, Shanahan, LaFleur offense. So the way a quarterback gets good is continuity, and being around and learning the nuances of that offense and feeling very comfortable. And so you do that by staying within the same system. So it was basically he had a rookie do-over this year by bringing in a new coach and a whole new offense. Look at how his numbers improved from the first half of the year to the second half of the year. He went from like a 58% passer with more interceptions than touchdowns to a 63% passer with more touchdowns than interceptions. And he still had, the pass blocking. The run blocking of this team, you can, crucify the offensive line all you want, but their run blocking was damn good.
Mm-hmm.
They can't pass block this shit.
We've got a couple of more questions, and then we've got a special announcement to make here, Greg and I. But first, let's get this one out of the way. Berlissimo is asking, is Zach Wilson the new Josh Rosen? Sure doesn't appear like
might not be that good.
But a better question.
Zach Wilson's problem isn't his skill set. Zach Wilson's problem's from here up.
Yep, right there.
He's got no football character.
Indeed. What about Bellissimo's question about Tua? Tua could be considering retirement. You think the Dolphins are in the quarterback market?
Well, I think it's too early to even speculate on that. I mean, yeah, he had 2 concussions in a short period of time. I have some experience with concussions. I've had at least 6.
My goodness.
I had 3, and this is long before people worried about concussions, but I had one late in the season, my freshman year in high school, where I was out cold. So I, had memory loss for a good half hour, 40 minutes after I came to. Like, I couldn't remember from one second to the next.
Wow.
And there's some funny stories because, nobody at that time. So this is 1965. That tells you how old I am. I'm a freshman in high school. And,
freshman in high school.
Yeah. So, coach says, go to the locker room. And I looked down and go, where's the locker room? So he has a guy take me into the locker room. I don't remember how I got hit. I was a running back, so I had to be carrying the ball. That's all I know is that, but I never saw the play. It's not like you filmed. I was on the JV team as a freshman. It's not like you filmed the JV team games, in 1965. So I get a guy then takes me into the locker room, and I'm standing there, and he goes, take a shower and get dressed. Well, where's my locker? He says, you're standing right in front of it. Oh, and now it came to a point that people thought I was faking. And it wasn't. I just did not remember from one second to the next. So then he goes, just take a shower and get dressed. I said, okay. So I got my uniform on. I went and took a shower with my uniform on. That's how messed up I was. That's concussion number 1. The next one, 4 months later, maybe 3 months later, it was in the, after Christmas break. This was the first one was in late October, beginning of November. This one was in like February. After gym class, Canisius High School is an older building, and where the gym was and where the locker rooms were, real high ceilings, and there were the old plaster ceilings. And so I come out of the shower, I'm getting dressed. You know how when you're young, kids sometimes would take a book and go like that, slap you on top of the head.
Oh yeah.
Well, it felt like that. And what it was a piece of plaster broke off from the ceiling that was probably,
oh my goodness,
2 by 3 and over an inch thick, and falls about 20 feet and hits me right on top of the head. That was because now that one I didn't lose my memory, but it gave me a concussion, and I had to get sick.
Why didn't you sue? Yeah.
Because that was 1960. Now it's 1966 because it's the spring. And, people didn't sue over those things, over
True.
stuff like that. My father was a tough old son of a bitch, and he'd oh, why didn't you look up and see? Well, all because I knew it was going to happen, right? Come on, give me a look.
That is hilarious.
So now
tough.
I go to a different high school for my sophomore year and finished out my high school career. I go to Bishop Newman High School, and I'm on the basketball team. And during a game, I don't remember how it happened, but I somehow on the ground hit my head on the court, knocked me out again. And that was probably December or January because it was the winter, December or January of my sophomore year. So it was like either December of 66 or January of 67. So that's 3 in a period of less than 18 months that I had.
Scary stuff.
And I didn't get enough. I got 3 more, but those were in college and when I was playing, minor league football. But I asked my doctor here when all this concussion stuff started coming out, and he goes, I said, is this something I got to worry about? He said, have you had any issues since then? I said, no. He goes, why worry about it? And then, so I said, okay. So I probably got CTE and don't know about it. And if I go out and commit some heinous crime in the next just remember that I said that.
Oh gosh, that is really a funny story, but it's also a bit scary. We got breaking news. I'm sorry. Bears have signed wide receiver Daurice Fountain and defensive lineman Donovan Jeter to reserve future contracts. I'm sure there's going to be a number more of those today. You have any thoughts on any of these two players?
Well, Fountain was on the practice squad for a while. And
Yes,
he was a big receiver. If I recall correctly, I kind of liked him. He went to Northern Iowa.
Yeah, was with Kansas City, right?
Yes, and he's a big guy. Originally with Kansas City, so Ryan Poles had him. I had time with him in Kansas City. He's plays bigger than his size. Got long arms. More of a possession type guy.
And another good blocker.
Yeah. So, but these are filling out your roster. Some of these guys will be in camp next year, and others won't, because you're gonna get into free agency. You're gonna sign guys. You're gonna draft guys, and then you're gonna sign undrafted free agents. And some of these guys are going to take the place of some of these guys signing future contracts. Yep. But you want to get into your off-season program before the draft, because your off-season program starts before then. You got to have enough guys to do things.
Right. You need 90 guys.
You don't need 90 for that, but it won't hit 90 until after the draft. But you still got to have enough players to do shit. And so they'll do that. But getting back to Tua, part of that's going to be him and his family, and the other part's going to be the doctors.
Right.
Put it this way. If he plays this week, they're not worried about it.
Yeah.
But I have a sneaking suspicion that he is not going to be suited up for this playoff game this week, because it's only been a few weeks since he had concussions like 3 weeks apart, and I think the doctors will keep him out for a while.
All right, it is time to make our big announcement here. Greg Gabriel, we here at the Barroom have provided free content since 2014. For the first time ever, we're going to be charging for some of our content, and it is going to be draft content provided by Greg Gabriel and Danny Shimon coming February 1st, premium draft content from both Greg and Danny. All of the details on pricing and so forth will be available very, very soon. And so we're hoping to get subscribers up so we can pay for their time and for the expenses involved in doing all of this work. So primarily February, March, and April, you are going to get draft profiles from Greg Gabriel and Danny Shimon, 10 minutes or so videos on the players that you want them to talk about, that you want to get their opinion, in-depth draft profiles. Now, Gabriel Talks Football and Draft on Tap, 2 of our free shows, are going to remain. They're going to alternate every other week. So we'll be talking about the draft and free agency and everything Bears related for free content where you've always gotten it. But we're now also going to have this premium content, and it's another opportunity for me to work with the great Greg Gabriel and Danny Shimon. Greg, are you excited about this?
We should, I am. And I think we should point out, too, that it's not like we're going to do the top 100 players in the draft. It's going to be players that we think fit the Bears. And there may be some guys we do that aren't fits, that are highly regarded players, but we're going to say this is why we don't think the Bears would be interested in him. He's just, not a fit, not a scheme fit. And so, and I could throw out some names now, but I'll save it for the premium content.
There you go.
But it's going to be, so it's going to be concentrated on Bears needs. And that could change, where we start doing things and then free agency starts around the 15th of March and they start signing some people, and that could change some needs, because what happens in the draft is dependent on what happens in free agency, both gains and losses.
And thank you, Barrelissimo, who Barrelissimo is an outstanding evaluator of talent too. He's got his own YouTube channel. I urge everybody to visit that. But yeah, this is going to be really cool in so many respects. And as part of that premium content, it's going to be more than just the evaluations from Greg and Danny. There's going to be some extra material involved with that. So we'll let you know the prices and all of the content that's available at that content with those prices very soon.
Yeah, we'll have some video of the players and stuff that we're talking about. So and it'll be, I think, we talked about this yesterday, similar to how I wrote reports for the Pro Football Weekly draft guide. I'm going to talk, this is what the strong points are. This is what their weak points are. What I think they're going to do as a pro, and how they fit within the Bears scheme.
Yep.
Correct.
And that's the key. Absolutely correct. That's the key is, talk a little bit about fit and all of your experiences. Do you recall a player, whether it was drafted by the Chicago Bears or the Green Bay Packers or whatever team, that was a highly regarded player but failed because the fit wasn't there? Do you recall anybody off the top of your head?
Well, it's an interesting question, because back when I started and the coaches weren't as involved in the scouting aspect as they are now. And you took players, okay, you lined up your board, you took the best player, started off with the Bills and the Giants. You were taking the players, basically how they were lined up on the board, and it was like, put on the coaches, we'll make them fit. Well, you know what? You can't make players do something they can't do. Okay, so you got to have, and I'll give you, for instance, and it's more so, in my opinion anyway, it's more so on defense and offense. But in this particular offense, the one thing that is important is that your offensive linemen, because you got an outside zone scheme, the offensive linemen have to be athletic. And you can look at the profiles of the linemen they drafted last year. Even if they were late, they were all very athletic guys for big men. 3 of them ran sub 5-second 40s, which for linemen is rare. And they've got to be able to play in space, adjust on the move in space, be able to pull. And so I can't see, unless a big guy, like a 330, 340 pound offensive lineman is an exceptional athlete, I can't see him being a guy they'd go out and get. Now, they had to play it like Barroom is that kind of guy, and he dropped weight. He's in the 320. The more I watch, and I thought Barroom had a future after a year ago. Watching him this year, we've talked about it. It seems like he's hit his plateau. I would not be surprised if he's not here next year. If he is here, you don't want him being more than a backup.
Yeah.
Because he's good enough to get you beat.
Yeah. Unless he makes some dramatic improvement. What's your experience with offensive linemen when they move from year 2 to 3? Do you with wide receivers, the story has been year 2 to 3 is usually when you see market improvement for most wide receivers. Is there something of a correlation with linemen as well?
Well, part of it is that he is not as athletic when you look at his athletic profile as like the guys they brought in this year. Okay, Tevin Jenkins was very athletic. Okay, Barroom fit the mold of what Juan Castillo wanted. Different coach, different philosophy, different style of blocking. So I don't know if he can work on becoming more athletic. He can work on getting more lean muscle weight and less body fat, but he has problems with wide speed. And I don't know if that's going to change. I mean, yes, experience helps it, but he's played a lot of football in his first 2 years. It's not like he's been sitting on the bench. He's had to play. My opinion off of Sunday, I thought Carter played better than Barroom did at guard.
Interesting. I haven't looked at the tape yet, so I'm definitely going to look for that.
And
go ahead.
Barroom played most of the first half except for 2 series. Carter was in. Carter played the entire second half. And he is, and we've talked about him before, he is very athletic. Guy was a point guard in high school and had D1 offers to play point guard, what do you call it? Mid-major offers, not like Power 5 type offers, to play basketball in college. He's an athletic guy that happens to be 305 pounds, and he's strong. So with him, it's a matter of, he played at the FCS level, and it was making that jump, the jump that Braxton Jones made, and Ryan Poles spoke about. They didn't expect him to play. He was just too good. Yeah, did he have weaknesses? Absolutely, but he was too good not to play him. He far exceeded their expectations. And in fact, you look at it, and they signed Riley Reif to play left tackle. But then once they got a look at Braxton Jones, they said, no, this guy's got the traits. Now, he's got to get stronger in the lower body. He can do that in one off season.
It's good to hear.
He gets stronger in the lower body. He's going to be an entirely different player, and his ability to anchor is going to be much better. And that's his main weakness right now, is he doesn't anchor well.
Why do you think Jatari Carter was on the bench the entire year? Jay Sanders is asking.
I just don't think they thought he was ready to play. And so when they wanted to see him in game condition, so they threw him in this game. My opinion, they put up the white flag in this game. I mean, we all can agree with this one. Yes. The way they line people up, and how about a secondary that had one player, Jaquan Brisker, and all the rest were practice squad guys.
That kid Hand that they picked up a week ago, oh my gosh, he's the worst tackler I've ever seen. Pee-wee football, any kind of football. This guy was awful.
I mean, it was like, who are these guys? And, you know, they didn't know the defense that well.
Mhm.
They were playing very, very cautious. Hell, you and I could have gotten open against those guys. They're horrendous. But, you know, that's what you get when you start. You guys who have been with your club for a couple of weeks and you got to go out and start them. But they had nobody else to go to.
Yeah, indeed. Greg, I have got to run. I have got a new show that we're debuting tonight. It's called Bare Their Souls. It's basically Dan and Aldo are back, but we've got some new co-hosts, Nomad, Dan Shortino. We call him the other Dan because I can't properly pronounce his last name, and the Tooch is coming back. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I got a lot of prep work done, and we've given everybody an hour and a half of Gabriel Talks Football, and we got a lot more Gabriel Talking Football coming up with our premium content. Be on the lookout for it. Greg, any final words before we sign off?
No, this is when the fun begins now. I mean, you know,
Yes.
this is now it's getting ready for next year. It's just that it's, you know, 3.5 months of this.
Yeah, that's the bad part.
You know, you gotta. There's going to be, I'll just leave it this way. About 80% of what you hear is not true.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it's the lying season.
Right. And about 80% of the Twitter comments from fans is total bullshit and shouldn't be read or responded to, right? That's my philosophy.
I saw one trade the guy put this is for Houston to move from 2 to 1. You know, a first next year, a 2 picks this year on top of, you know, flip-flopping, and then 2 more firsts down the road. It's a frickin' 400-point move, not 4,000.
Not going to happen, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, you know, people aren't stupid.
Some of them are, I think. Some of them. Anyway,
no, I mean,
love you all.
The people making the decision. The
Yes,
fans, you know, they got this idea. It's not going to happen. Get that out of your head.
Exactly. All right. Domber says Detroit versus everybody. I'm going to leave. Let's leave it with this. What was your assessment of the Lions this season? Let's give one to Don. What did you think of their season?
I thought they really came on.
Yeah.
You know, I thought beginning of the year they were typical Detroit Lion team, and they came on, and I'm glad they knocked Green Bay out. I'll tell you, not that I like to cheer for Detroit, but I'm glad that they knocked Aaron Rodgers out of the playoffs. And now that I think the interesting story of the off season, besides what does Chicago do, is what does that asshole do up north? Does he come back or does he hang it up? And I have never seen a player in all the time I've been involved with this have a team by the balls like he does.
He sure does. He sure does. All right. That is it for this episode of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. He and I will be back next week. And also stay tuned for more of our information regarding the premium content coming your way. Greg, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
We'll see you later.